This is the Lightning Junkies podcast with your host, Chaz Cryptoson. On this episode of the podcast, we have Evan Kaloudis. He makes the fucking Zeus Wallet, bitch. Zeus is a mobile wallet that allows you to connect to a remote Lightning node. Currently LND, but soon to be Seat Lightning nodes will be supported as well. Zeus is currently available on Google Play, iOS Test Flight, and on F-Droid. Personally, I use Zeus for connecting to my remote LND node in order to get the best Lightning experience. This week, we return to much less controversial waters, and, we talk about Lightning and stuff. What the hell else are we going to talk about? If you want to support the podcast, you can, chip in Bitcoin or Bitcoin over Lightning on crowdfund.lightningjunkies.net. You can also tip me in the show notes in various ways. Starting this week, you can also join SparkSwap or join Fold and use my affiliate links, and those will also support the podcast as well. Don't forget all the normal ways of supporting a podcast, including subscribing, leaving a review, spreading the word on social media, buying me a pizza, buying me alcohol, sending me letters where you break down the intimate details of how you have dedicated your life to be a Lightning Junkie just like me. All that fun stuff being said, let's get into the actual reason you're here today. Let's jump into this episode. I would like to go ahead and welcome Evan to the Lightning Junkies podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey, doing well, Chaz. Thanks for having me. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to sit down and speak with you.
Absolutely here. What's your general background? Let's not jump into Bitcoin land quite yet.
That's a great question. So I've got a bit of a computer background. So I was really always into computers. When I was young, my dad always, had a couple of computers around, playing old MS-DOS games, and eventually going online with AOL and downloading James Bond trailers that would, take a day or two to download very low fidelity clips. As I got a little older and I got into middle school, I got my own desktop and started tinkering around with it. I got my own iPod, got really into music. And then in high school, I started a music website. It was originally called 130 BPM, then turned to beatsperminute.com. And we did music reviews, a lot of alternative stuff, electronic, hip hop, sort of a wide sprawl of stuff. Yeah, that was just on WordPress. And from there, I sort of got into web sort of stuff because WordPress is based on PHP. I got sort of into the CSS styling stuff. Yeah, I had a really good time with that. I had a lot of people go on to write for some pretty cool publications. I went to college for computer science, and I started, studying CS properly. Yeah, I guess it's really around college that I really got into the Bitcoin rabbit hole. It's quite a journey. My first year in school was when Occupy Wall Street was starting up. There's these big protests downtown by Wall Street and Zuccotti Park, where there's a lot of protesters, arguing about the recession and the bailout of the banks. And there was just a whole lot of ideas going down there. Fortunate I got brought into that chaos. I had some friends on my floor who wanted to go see Radiohead. There was this rumor that Radiohead was playing in the park, and I'm like, yeah, let's go see Radiohead. We like that band. And that just ended up being a silly rumor. But thank God someone made it, because I went down there and I got exposed to all these just wide-ranging opinions from left to right, center to the horseshoe, and amongst some of those ideas was Bitcoin. That's probably the first time I really heard about it.
Do you think that was the perfect environment to hear about Bitcoin?
Oh yeah, absolutely. With that climate, I mean, let's just think about the Genesis block. People like to say that Bitcoin is apolitical, amoral, but in a lot of ways that's true. The system doesn't really care who you are. It's not going to pivot or do something else. But its inception, and its creation was inherently political. I think that's pretty hard to deny.
Absolutely. So you discovered Bitcoin at, Occupy Wall Street. How did things go from there?
Oh man, like even at Occupy, I always thought it was like a interesting idea, but I didn't really go down the rabbit hole until some years later. It's probably like 2.5 years after that I really got my hands on my first Bitcoin. And I think that's saying a lot because, even as someone who's young and, interested in, you know, that movement, Occupy, and someone who was even studying computer science, like, it didn't really click all at once. The concept of like sound money and whatnot wasn't really foreign to me either, because I had some family friends who were really into Austrian economics and Mises, a lot of libertarian ideals. So that wasn't really foreign to me. The idea of Bitcoin as being like, this sort of de facto better money and something that I should have and I should hold, it didn't really click until, a couple of years later when I, got my hands on it. I mean, it was something like you really need to see firsthand for it to really make sense. And even then, there's some mystique behind it, because if you have like just a wallet interface, you're seeing your balance go up or down. It's a little bit mystical, if you don't really understand what's going on, the mempool, the transactions being put into block templates by the miners, then being propagated on the network, and all the little nuance behind it. So, in that regard, I think we have to be patient with the rest of society that's just slowly awakening and to an extent embracing this idea. This is not going to be something that happens overnight. This is not going to be something that even comes to fruition fully in like another 10 years. It's going to take decades, in my opinion. The potential repercussions of this all are immense. It has the potential to change, so many facets of our civilization. For that reason, it's probably the most important project that our generation is working on.
I think I would agree with that very much. When you were talking about Occupy Wall Street, you mentioned, there were people on, all parts of the political spectrum. Just kind of thinking about Bitcoin on that level for a moment, do you think that that holds true for Bitcoin as well, that it appeals to, all sides of the political spectrum, or do you think it appeals to one side more than the other, etc.?
In some ways, I like to think, well, I don't, it's not that I like to think, but it's more easy to grok from a libertarian or ANCAP perspective. I think that's abundantly clear. But just because Satoshi is undoubtedly coming from that direction, that doesn't mean that someone from the other side of the spectrum can't see the immense value in it. Because more than ideologies or these isms we talk about, at the end of the day, Bitcoin empowers individuals. It empowers you, it empowers me, and it empowers whoever decides to run the software or transact in the currency. So for that reason, I think it can be embraced, pretty much by everyone. Maybe not, a straight up totalitarian, authoritarian entity. Maybe not. Maybe they'll have some pushback to that of money they can't control. But at the same time, we have this public ledger that they could sift through. So, we need to factor that in as we move forward with development and work on the adoption of all of these privacy tools that we hope to see adopted. Yeah, I would say that ideology should not be a factor that stops anyone from using Bitcoin. And it's good to see that in the space that there are people who do identify as socialists, as left leaning, as democratic socialists. I'm sure there might be a couple Bitcoin communists out there too. We shouldn't have, cater to this left-right divide. I think it's more divisive. It's something that we shouldn't let get in the way. Like, we should be able to go across these lines, regardless of how someone identifies, to help, propagate the use of this technology. Definitely.
So you were saying that around, I think, 2013, 2014, you actually got your first Bitcoin. Is that right?
Yeah. Got on some exchanges, got on like the tail end of the Gox, but, bought like very insignificant amount of coins through like a bank wire. The following year, it got on Coinbase. Yeah, then from there, I actually, not really embarrassed to admit it, I got into some shitcoinery. I got interested in projects like Dogecoin because I thought, the virality of it, the ease of use, the small units. I mean, the fact that you send like 10,000 of these doges at a time. I thought it could really help propagate the technology of cryptocurrency as a whole, by making it friendly, accessible. You don't really care if you lose a coin that has the dog's head on it. You know what I mean? So I had gotten involved a little bit with the Dogecoin community and helped Langerhans. He's the current maintainer of the library of Dogecoin, even though Dogecoin doesn't really get a lot of commits. But I helped him with a few things on the multi-Doge Light wallet, which is a fork of Electrum. So did that, built a couple of rigs and GPU mined a whole bunch of crap. Then started going down the rabbit hole of privacy coins. Darkcoin was really interesting to me. That's now Dash, I believe, and they were pushing like master nodes, if you remember that, and things were starting to get a little ridiculous. Then from there, I was looking into Monero and Zcash, and sort of went down that rabbit hole, because from the get go, it became clear that people back then were saying Bitcoin's private. It wasn't private. It's really pseudonymous, and if you leak one of your public facing addresses and link it to your identity, you're done. Yeah, I really didn't understand at the time the repercussions of having all the coins fully private and the repercussions that means for the coin supply and the scarcity of the asset. And I didn't really understand, the network effects of it, the forced hard forks. I didn't understand uh, the repercussions of having large developer subsidies up to 20%. I didn't understand the repercussions of these foundations that house most of these developers having mailing address that could get subpoenaed by large governments. So yeah, I mean, even someone like myself who has a very technical background, I would say, great love for Bitcoin right now. It wasn't really a straightforward journey as it could have been.
I think I would probably have a good deal of overlap there with you. And I find it pretty interesting that you were interested in Dogecoin there at the beginning, because I happen to see a lot of overlap with Dogecoin and the Lightning Network, just in the kind of a lot of the kind of mentalities and kind of micro tipping and that kind of enthusiasm behind it, the things that we're seeing kind of happening on Lightning. Do you have any kind of like opinion on that? Like Dogecoin being similar to Lightning and all?
Oh yeah, that was definitely a huge use case of it. I mean, it probably first caught my eye on Reddit, just going on threads and seeing comments and having like tip bots, dish out coins to other users. And while it's definitely inferior to something with like Lightning, especially if you're using your own node, and when you're using like these tip bots on Reddit, it's like a fully custodial solution. It could be censored. You could lose your coins. It was still like an incredible concept to me that like we now have this money that you can send these like arbitrarily small amounts of, and you don't have to worry about the credit card processing fee or hitting some sort of minimum. Like I could send someone 3 cents with a string of text from my keyboard, and I pop it into Reddit, and a bot scans it and makes sure the right person gets it. That was definitely a huge part of the appeal for me. A big part of that is like unit bias and how many Doge there are. I mean, I think it's actually uncapped. Yeah, that was definitely a precursor to it in a lot of ways, and I'll always be grateful for that experience. Perhaps I wish I would focus a little more on Bitcoin out the gate, but at the end of the day, I got to where I want to be.
At what point did you actually start doing development work with Bitcoin and Lightning?
Was it late 2017 or early 2018, I believe? Maybe a little later.
Okay.
Yeah, I first started contributing to Zap. I put in a couple commits there. And yeah, I just love what they were doing. I still do. Zap's a great product. And I put in some commits to help with some of the error codes. Like I had set up my own node and I was trying to put in transit actions and they were failing on me. And Zap is telling me stuff like error code 3. I'm like, Okay, thanks. Can someone explain this to me? So I put together a utility that took the error codes and created a human readable explanation so that users could sort of figure out what the crux of their problem was. So yeah, I started with that. I actually reached out to Jack originally when I was thinking about getting together some sort of mobile app because with Lightning, I had my node at home, I was connecting on my desktop, and that was all cool. With Lightning bringing together like this almost instant settlement layer, it sort of made sense to have it on the go. It's like this is made to pay at retailers or with your friends or get stuff done. So I was pretty set on having a mobile wallet, but at the time the options were pretty sparse. There was maybe one or two, but I wasn't too crazy about them. So I floated the idea past Jack of perhaps making a Zap Mobile with React Native, but I believe there was already an iOS version in the works that Otto was working on, and Jack was pretty gung ho about writing the apps natively. Just do a standalone Java or Scala Android app, and then do like the Swift iOS app. So I just decided to just work on it on my own. I was very much familiar with React from work. I had been using it to build our interface at the cybersecurity company I work at. And I had just heard about React Native like about a year before that. And I had just been itching to do a project with it. It just sounded so cool. The idea to be able to write my React code and have it run on iOS and Android with one code base. I figured, why not try to make this Lightning wallet that I want to have in my pocket. And yeah, from there I just started iterating on it very, very slowly. It took months and months and months until I was ready to even talk to other people about it. But when it was, we put it out there and it got a great response and just got people using it. And something that I had made out of necessity for myself became something that other people use and enjoy, and it's a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I definitely use it as my primary mobile wallet at the moment. And I definitely remember last year when I was trying to find something similar. And I recall I think there's maybe two other wallets out there that was doing that. And I really didn't like their interfaces. There was something just off about them. I definitely like Zeus's interface at the moment.
Yeah, I was just fortunate to have worked with a really good UI UX guy when I was working on our front end at work. Shout out to Hector. I'm not sure if you'll listen to this, but yeah, he just gave me a really good sense of design, keeping things simple, different color palettes. So yeah, I like to think I picked up a couple of things from him and put it into the product. It's just trying to keep it simple and clean, and we're always thinking about workflows, how to speed stuff up, how to take a click out or scan something and take you to the right place in the app. Really done a lot to work in that direction the last couple of releases.
What have been the biggest new features and new changes in the last couple releases?
From the start, we didn't have multiple node support, so you were only able to plug one node in, and that soon became like a big nuisance for me. Sorry, a big nuisance for me because I connect to my node from different locations. When I'm home, I don't need to connect through Tor. I'll just connect to my local network. But when I'm on the go, I might connect through a VPN or over the Tor network, depending on the conditions. So I got that added in really quickly. But then from there, we sort of opened it up, and we've got a lot of great contributions. Happy to say that our next upcoming release, it's currently in beta. You could get the betas on our website and on our Twitter and on TestFlight. It includes support for C Lightning through Suheb from Ride the Lightning's C Lightning REST project, which is exceptional. As you might know, C Lightning doesn't have its own API built into it, but it does have this plugin system. So different people have been making their own plugins that have gRPC and REST API interfaces on top of it. And Suheb, I've gotten to know very well from the New York Bitcoin meetups. Yeah, I was a big fan of Ride the Lightning. I use it on my node pretty much every week. I'm on there poking around. So yeah, I figured he was working on this project. Why not bring him to the fold in Zeus? And so far, I've been really happy with it. So we got C Lightning REST support coming in there, and we also got support for LNURL payments from this guy named Fiat Jaff. He hangs out in our Telegram chat. He's a really smart guy. Basically, we have support for two types of LNURL payments, pay and withdraw. And basically, LNURL is a protocol on top of the Lightning invoice system in which you can scan these QR codes and trigger these different sort of events. So let's say instead of giving someone an invoice straight up, you'll give them this LNURL that's encoded in a QR code. When the user scans it, they trigger an event. Then the server will generate the invoice for them and send it to the user so that it only gets generated when it needs to. More interesting is the LN URL withdraw functionality, which lets you withdraw to your Lightning wallet just by scanning a QR code. So there's no process generating the invoice, copying it, sending it to the other party, having them scan it, having them pay it. No, it's just you scan the QR code, uh, you click submit, and it triggers the withdrawal for you. So there's a lot of interesting stuff being built on top of the Lightning protocol. I wouldn't really call it L3 like people think it is, but the ability to build on top of it and build new applications and use cases like that, it's fascinating. It's amazing to see, and very excited to have that support built into the next release of Zeus.
Maybe we'll call it L 2.5.
Yeah, I like that actually. I think that's a pretty good way to market it. So yeah, I'm really excited about the possibilities that are going on there, and I'm really excited about the stuff that's happening on the actual protocol level. I think some of the Lightning devs are, taking note of what people are doing on top of Lightning, like with LNURL, and are taking notes, figuring out how to exchange messages. I'm really, really excited for the prospect of doing encrypted messaging on Lightning and not having to trust a third party. Um, in the last, I don't know how long it's been now, 6, 7 years, the web has gone great strides to improve user privacy with HTTP efforts and encrypted messengers. But at the end of the day, well, you're using something like Signal, which is sort of the de facto standard for people who want to text each other encrypted. There's still a lot of room there for the Signal developers to screw with you. It's not like you or I could spin up our own Signal server. That code is all closed. Only the client code is open. So it would be amazing if we had some sort of system in which you and I can send payments to each other and we're handling all the encryption on our nodes and there's no third party in the middle that could potentially work their way into our exchange. So yes, something like what's SAT that Juice from Lightning Labs is working on has immense potential and is something that potentially we could see built into Zeus. I would love that, but we're a little bit out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely follow up on that thought train there. I just had a different question for you on a kind of more basic level, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You're saying how you kind of implemented support for C Lightning into, or you're going to one of the future releases, the currently in beta. Would you say, from a kind of more personal basis, that you like, either C Lightning or LND more?
Generally speaking, I'm much more familiar with L&D. I'm a bit of a Golang developer. If I were to hop in any of the projects, I would probably hop into L&D. But I've heard from people who run more heavy instances than mine, who've done a little heavier development, that C Lightning is a little more performant. Part of that is being written in C versus Go. Go is great, but if you're writing C efficiently, you're not going to really be able to beat that performance. But at the end of the day, they're both great implementations. And it's just great to have this sort of pluralism of implementations. We just need to be open to it. Obviously, Zeus isn't going to implement, everyone that comes down the line. I'm sure we're going to have tens, if not hundreds, of these implementations when all is said and done. But it's good to see, these different nodes and these different implementations to, sort of keep each other in check, to sort of mitigate the risks of security bugs when they happen on the network, just for the devs to have some competition and kick each other in the ass to give us the consumers a better product. It's great. So, shouts to everyone working on C Lightning and everyone working on LND. I think they're both fantastic.
And everyone working on all the other implementations as well.
Yeah, of course. Everything from the Yuta to the Electrum guys are working on stuff. Yeah, let's keep it up. Yeah, it's some people say that too many options, spreading ourselves too thin. It's an inevitability. We can't fight it back. People can wake up tomorrow and start as many new implementations as they want. So let's pick through them. Let's use them. Let's contribute to them, and let's keep building the ecosystem, because I feel that we need a balance of these different clients and implementations for us to be in a good and healthy state.
So while we're talking about the Lightning ecosystem here, do you want to maybe share your opinion on what your favorite Lightning app is?
Lightning apps right now. There's always like a lot of fun ones. Like the first ones that really like stuck out to me was the ones where you pay to draw on them or submit an image, and you have like pretty much these digital graffiti boards. Someone made like a new one that uses a C Lightning TLVs the other day that I was checking out. That looked awesome. So something like that was really cool, just to see like how instant you can make these marks and how small these amounts of payments are. I think that's incredible. But really, right now, I'm really intrigued about these on-chain. I mean, not on-chain. These Lightning non-custodial exchanges that are going to come into the mix. Something that's going to let me do my bank transfer or my Zelle transfer and get Sats right in a Lightning channel to my node. I think there's going to be a lot of challenges there for the operators of those exchanges, but I think at the end of the day, the experiences that we're going to have are going to be incredibly smooth and very, very different from what we're seeing nowadays. Experiences that are not going to be holding funds for the users completely non-custodially, and that's going to change a lot of security and threat models in the space too. So I'm really excited about that.
So as an example, are you talking about something like Spark Swap or Escher maybe?
Yeah, those are the two I have in mind right now. And I know Jack from Zap is working on Olympus. That's going to be fun, especially with these like channels, these what is it, turbo channels, I believe, that just get open. And so yeah, I'm really excited for that. It's going to be really cool, and we're going to see these brand new models. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff leaning in that direction. But there's a lot of custodial risk there. A lot of people are going to be storing lots of money on these channels to make sure they're liquid enough to facilitate these transactions. So I think there's going to be like a new wave of focus on security. We're going to be laughing about the way things are set up now with our hot wallets and our keys just on one device. I think we're going to see new security schemes. I think we're going to see exchanges using hardware security modules that are just dedicated to doing the key signing, because these hot wallets for these exchanges, they're going to be really, really hot targets.
Do you think we're going to end up seeing a major Lightning hack sometime soon?
I wouldn't say super soon, but it's going to happen, and it's going to probably happen sooner than you think. So yeah, it's just going to be how people adjust to it. Are people going to freak out and be like, oh man, wow, Lightning's a failure because this happened? Well, that would be really foolish, and we'd be passing up a great business opportunity if you just dismiss it like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how first the incumbent players right now, how they set themselves up to protect themselves from these sort of things from happening. It's also going to be interesting to see people's reactions when it actually does happen for the first time and people get the kick in the ass to really make some changes about it. Someone with a security background, it's just something I'm just looking out for. I'm sort of anxious about. I'm not eager, but I'm anticipating.
A pretty common thing that, people that are against Lightning or want to be very skeptical of Lightning would, point out the thing that we're talking about, the fact that you're Lightning node is always online. Do you think that particular trade-off is, really the end of the world, or is there really strong ways to mitigate it kind of at the end of the day?
No, there's going to be uh, a good handful of ways to mitigate it. I think we're going to see dedicated signing devices, hardware security modules. It's going to be a little tricky. Yeah, there will be workarounds, and yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world. I mean, hell, Chaz, I feel like even if Lightning goes butt up tomorrow, Bitcoin still has an incredible chance for success.
Absolutely. Let's keep going with that thought. Let's say Lightning dies tomorrow. What do you think everyone that's working on Lightning and similar things are going to jump to?
Yeah, I think people would take what they learned on the L2 failure, hopefully take some time to assess, take some deep breaths, step back, try to, see the bigger picture. But yeah, I think we'd either see, Lightning 2.0 or like a spiritual successor to it that addressed its shortcomings in some way or another. Most likely with some sort of other trade off that we haven't considered yet. you know, it's even sort of tricky to even imagine like a full scenario where Lightning gets abandoned entirely at this point, especially in the system that is so flexible. Like there's the amount of innovation that's happening, the amount of changes that are happening at the protocol. Uh, the rate at which people are allowed to innovate because this is the second layer and it's not the first sort of base layer that's sort of freezing up and becoming ossified. Yeah, however you paint the doom and gloom scenario, in my mind, there's going to be an upside.
So, do you think that overall Lightning is more interesting on a application side or just general dev side because it does move so quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because of its nature, everything's very lenient compared to developing on the Bitcoin protocol. Definitely, and we see it with the rate of development on the protocol level there, and we're also seeing it with the applications on top of it. That we can develop, that we have developed, and are out now. Definitely.
All right, so let's go ahead and get back to what you were saying before about Lightning with doing the messaging. I'm aware, I think, at least of two different projects of different ways of doing messaging on Lightning. I think I'm thinking of one that's counting as like a layer three, the Sphinx, or am I completely off base on that?
To be honest, I have not checked out Sphinx. I am predominantly an Android user, and I believe Sphinx is iOS only. But I've heard great things about it, and I really do like that idea of, having this payments being sent in chat. Obviously, it's something we're seeing, incumbent tech and financial institutions doing, like sending money through Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or whatever. I think that seems like a very, common sense application where you and I are having a chat. You say, "Oh, you owe me 20
Evan? Oh,
bucks
did I lose you
from
here?
beers last night or whatever it may be," and we settle it right there in our chat. I think that's going to be an awesome workflow and is going to become an inevitability. And we're seeing stuff like Sphinx and potentially WhatsApp pave the way for that. So it's very exciting. I actually think there's another Lightning app, a sort of, well, I'm not sure if it actually even has the chat portion of it, but the way that it shows your payments with other recipients is sort of in like that text messenger format where you click the recipient, it's ordered by who messaged you, who sent you money last, and then you could see the history like going back through like a chat log. So I think it's something that we're used to as users of the internet and phones. We're definitely going to see Lightning platforms in that format for sure.
Overall, do you think that the Lightning Network is going to end up being part of the cypherpunk privacy toolbox kind of overall here?
Yeah, I mean, today for people who want privacy using Bitcoin, I think it's a huge piece of the puzzle. I mean, especially if you're someone who's planning to be spending it on a day-to-day basis. Maybe if you're just a hodler, right, and you just want to stash coins away and not have Coinbase or whoever know where you're storing them. Maybe you could get by with just CoinJoin, maybe a couple other cool tricks. But for spending on a day-to-day basis, the gains that we get through Lightning are immense compared to spending on Base One. You know. Like, you don't have to worry about divvying up your money and not having it linked to each other or exposing how much you have. With Lightning, that's not really a problem, at least not to the same extent. Someone trying to transact privately today, especially with the ability to have a LN node entirely over the Tor network, I think you get amazing privacy gains.
So, do you think that if privacy never really came to the base layer of Bitcoin and we had to kind of rely on the upper layers to do our privacy for us, would we be in a good position, or would that be in a kind of precarious situation there with the base layer not really being that private?
Well, here's the thing. I'm operating on the assumption that we're never going to get the same, full privacy on the base layer. It's just never going to happen. There's going to be too many consensus issues. People are going to be worried about inflation bugs. Um, if everything is fully shielded, you just pave the way for people to print coins. And printing bugs happen all the time. Maybe not so much on Bitcoin, but you see them on altcoins happen all the time. Everything from Zcash to Zcoin, they've had issues because of their different setups and how they approach hiding these amounts. I'm just hoping at this point for us to get Schnorr and Taproot so that when I open and close a Lightning channel, that doesn't stick out like a sore thumb on the chain. That's my hope. If we get there, I would be, more than pleased with the progress. And it seems like it's going to be an inevitability. It seems like it's going to be a matter of when as opposed to if.
Do you think we're pretty close to it overall, though?
Yeah, hopefully in the next year and a half.
Are there any other things coming down the pipeline that you're interested in besides the one that we just went over?
No, I'm just really excited about all the different innovation that's happening. Not necessarily just at the protocol, but the applications being built on top. I feel like Bitcoin tooling is sort of getting amazing. I mean, I feel like we're spoiled. Maybe it's because I was playing with wallets in 2013, 2014 and dealing with their headaches and their trade-offs and my privacy being siphoned off from them one way or another. I just feel like the last year and a half, 2 years, and Bitcoin and all the tools we have now, I think we're incredibly blessed, and I'm incredibly thankful to the people who put in the hard work to make it happen. Everything from Samurai to Wasabi to the Lightning wallets. We have a lot more in our tool belt than we did even a year ago.
So, would you say that talking about things like Monero and Zcash, would you say that Bitcoin, probably has a bigger privacy set and has just general better privacy versus those other privacy coins, or is that going too far?
So, from a mathematical perspective, and just talking about how the transactions work, obviously Monero and Zcash are superior. But when you talk about real privacy, and you're talking about hiding in a crowd and the number of users that you have, Zcash and Monero are at a severe disadvantage. I think it's going to come down to how much volume we see with these coin join tools. Sabi's done a really good job as making this, standalone app that connects to Tor, preserves your privacy, but you're stuck at your desktop, and you have limitations with the pool sizes and whatnot. So I'm really excited about the Samurai guys getting the Whirlpool mobile mixing built into their wallet and getting that out the door. I think the ability to just mix coins as many times as you want from your mobile phone could do just wonders really for the amount of liquidity that we're going to get in privacy tools like that.
There's two groups of people that we want to onboard onto the Lightning Network, I think. And I think that's devs that are, working on both, the Lightning protocol itself and and working on Lightning apps. And then we also want to bring on users, obviously, into using, Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. Starting with devs first, I think. Last week, I actually had an episode where I had someone kind of talking about Ethereum layer 2 things. And part of the reason why I did that, I was trying to appeal to some amount of Ethereum people to kind of get some interest in the Lightning Network. Because I definitely feel like Lightning is a lot more interesting than Ethereum. I'm biased, obviously, but I definitely think that's true. Do you think it's a good idea overall to highlight to the general crypto community and, obviously the world outside of that, to show how interesting Lightning is to develop on, and the cool things that we're doing, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%, I think is a worthy effort. I would say it has to be somewhat of a measured approach because, you need to know your audience exactly and how receptive a certain group will be. So you got to sort of pick and choose your battles there. But I think overall it's a very good idea. I think we've already got a couple of really great devs from the Ethereum community. One who comes to mind is Will O'Byrne, who is the author of Lightning Jewel, which is the browser extension that lets you connect to your Lightning node and make payments in Firefox or Chrome. Yeah, Will was an incredible addition to our community, and when I first came out with Zeus, he gave me a lot of great feedback and hooked me up with a lot of really great resources. So shouts out to him. At the end of the day, people who are in cryptocurrency right now but are not in Bitcoin for the most part, the people who are really caring about it, that are hacking and tinkering on it, like most of those people are going to come over to Bitcoin. It's just going to be an inevitability when they come around to realizing what the shortcomings of the products they're working on are. And, even if they are incredibly intelligent, highly technical, skilled people, you can't fault them for taking so long to come over. For all the reasons I've listed in this episode. There's just so much nuance and so many facets in this system, like the incentive system, the game theory. All these things, they all add up. So to expect any one individual to just like get it like right out the gate is unreasonable. So we should be patient. We should be kind. I'm not saying we should just listen and accept bullshit when it gets thrown our way. But when we want to highlight or illustrate, why something is bullshit, we should do so in a tempered way. We don't want to come off as, being too abrasive or cruel, because that's going to push people away. And I understand that we need to be toxic to a certain extent. And, I appreciate, people caring so much about Bitcoin and caring the direction it goes down. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin is going to be Bitcoin. It's going to, keep cranking out its block rewards every 10 minutes. It's going to keep having that reward, that block subsidy every 4 years. And it's going to continue to be, what's going to be the scarcest asset that mankind has ever seen. So let's not worry too much. Let's, be very measured in our approaches. Let's decide to pick our battles. At the end of the day, let's not get too triggered by all these guys. I know we don't want newcomers to get scammed. At the end of the day, we're going to get there. And all we have to do is be willing to embrace people with open arms.
Absolutely. And now, we kind of touched on devs, and now I wanted to kind of touch on users here. One question that I tend to ask quite a bit on the podcast is, in the future, do you think it's a good thing to onboard people directly onto Lightning and kind of skip over onboarding them onto Bitcoin directly?
Yeah, I think there's going to be scenarios in the future where most people aren't going to interact with the base chain. And I think that's perfectly fine. I don't think that's the scenario today. I think maybe you can bring someone on to Lightning through a custodial solution like an LN hub through Blue Wallet or whatever, and they don't have to really worry about on-chain balances. But it's still not really the reality today. I think we're going to get there. I think it's probably a couple of years out. But yeah, there's definitely going to be people that don't interact with the base chain at all. It's going to be pretty normal, I think.
I guess what I was kind of thinking is, even in my own personal usage, I practically don't use on-chain payments. I mean, I do literally from time to time, but generally speaking, I don't. Like, I do use SparkSwap pretty often to just, buy, a little bit here, a little bit there. And then if I ever do need to take it out, I might do a submarine swap or some other kind of transaction to empty out my channel. Do you think this is going to become much more normal behavior over time, given the fact that more of these products are going to become more common, like we were saying earlier in the podcast?
Absolutely. I think it's irrefutable. I think right now it might not make the most sense depending on your use case. I mean, a lot of people right now, it's not really advantageous for them to be spending their Bitcoins regularly. A lot of that is due to tax purposes and whatnot. So a lot of people just want to stash it away. And, if you're thinking long term, you definitely don't want it on a Raspberry Pi in your house. The vast amounts of money, you definitely want it in some secure offline, perhaps multi-sig setup, multiple devices or multiple hardware wallets, different manufacturers. But as Lightning matures, as we get through these security hurdles, as these setups mature and evolve, I think this is all an inevitability. I think 99% of people are not going to do on-chain transactions at all, and those that do are mostly going to be balancing their channels. There'll be like, okay, it's the end of the month or the end of the quarter, or it's a lull in transaction and relatively the fees are low. Let me move my funds around so that I'm good to make my payments for the next month, 3 months, 6 months, etc. Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting to see how users move to these Lightning focused tools that let them achieve what they need to achieve for their use case of Bitcoin.
All right, perfect. Was there anything else you wanted to let the listeners know before we take off here?
Yeah, you could check out Zeus at zeusln.app. That's our website. We're ZeusLN on Twitter, ZeusLN on Telegram. Currently, we are on version 0.2.0 beta 3. We're probably going to do one more, probably like a release client in a couple of days, and hopefully put out a proper version of 0.2.0 next weekend. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We're really excited to have a sturdy release with C Lightning support and LNURL stuff. And just want to say thanks for having me on. Lightning Junkies is a great show. You've had some great content. You've managed to get some great guests on, and I think you're a really good interviewer. So thanks for having me on.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the podcast, Evan. Well, thank you, and we'll catch you later, man.
Cool. Sounds good. Later.
Boom. That was another episode of the Lightning Junkies podcast. What did you think about that particular episode of the podcast?
I don't even know what that's supposed to be. Is that supposed to be like Beetlejuice or something? Like, we here at the Lightning Junkies podcast do wish you learned something this week. Please give us feedback to let us know if you did learn anything, or if you'd like to see any other particular topics discussed on this particular podcast in the future, particularly. Thank you. And now, over to Chaz to send us out. I will see you on the Lightning Network. What if I keep talking after the music ends for some reason? I don't understand why. I'm starting to think that what I want to do on this podcast is a bit abstract for my audience. I'm not sure how much they would appreciate me just going all avant-garde randomly. It just doesn't make sense. This is a podcast about the Lightning Network. It's not about me trying to be funny. I don't get it. I just